So the time has finally come to build my new AMD gaming system. So a few videos back we took a look at a bare bones system that my computer teacher gave to me. It used to be his daughter's, but of course he built a new one for her and gave it to me. So that included the motherboard, an A10-5800k AMD processor. The motherboard, by the way, is an FM2A85X Extreme 6 by ASRock. That also included a Raidmax 530 watt power supply and a Raidmax Smile-It-On case. That's not the Extreme Black version, by the way. So, of course, the time has come to finally build the system. So in part 1 of 3, or part 1 of 4, it might be a 4-parter, this one, we're going to be taking a look at the components, the component choice, and also we're going to do the kind of test bench motherboard setup kind of thing at the end. So I'm going to now go one by one through all the components and kind of talk about them. And so yeah, I guess I'll start with the I think it's an APU, this one. So the processor in this build is of course the AMD A10-5800k CPU. So this was the processor that came with the donation from my computer teacher. Cooling it will be of course the AMD stock cooler. Unfortunately, I do not have a better cooler that will work on AMD CPUs or any AMD mounting hardware, or you get what I'm saying. So of course, pretty soon, hopefully in the next couple months, I'm going to be upgrading like the color scheme and the cooling system in this build. So I want to go for a green and yellow kind of color scheme here. And I'll be getting a better cooler, hopefully a nice tall 120mm one. I don't think I'm going to be water cooling this build, but if I do, of course, that would be very nice. So this processor has a stock clock speed of 3.8 GHz. I believe it turbos up to 4.2 as well. And it also has integrated graphics. So it's a quad-core processor with another quad cores for graphics, as my computer teacher at least puts it that way. I'm not sure how all that works because I don't know anything about AMD, really. I'm more Intel AMD, or Intel NVIDIA with my PC designs. But this CPU, when I was looking at it online, looking at some benchmarks for it, according to CPUBoss.com, it is slightly better than 4770K. So that's pretty cool. I'm not sure how accurate that is. On that note, I've never heard of CPU Boss, so we'll have to do some more research into that. However, it would be very nice if it is. So of course, this has AMD graphics, and it's an APU, so I'll be running that alongside my graphics card in Crossfire, presuming that my motherboard supports that, and presuming that's how it works. So I think in the Linus Tech Tips video, they said you can do that with APUs, so I'm just going by that. It seems logical. So I'll be running this in Crossfire with my GPU. So of course, the graphics card for this build is going to be the ATI Radeon HD5830. So this is the XFX version of the card. I will never be able to say that without kind of stuttering. XFX version of the card. So this, like I said, is the Radeon HD5830. This was given to me for $15 by my friend Nick. Link to his channel in the description. I got this yesterday. That's been what's putting off the build for so long. I've just been waiting for him to find this and be able to give it to me. So of course, hold on, this is really driving me insane. There's a screw. I'll get onto that a bit more now. So this card, he gave it to me. It was extremely dusty. So the time now, trust me, this all is incorporated into what I'm saying about this card. The time is 7:06 a.m. So I got up at 4 o'clock. I just woke up at 4 a.m. for some reason, and so I just decided I'd get up, and I took this card apart and cleaned it out completely. Replaced the thermal compound with Arctic Silver 5. and it got all the dust off the underside of the fan blades, the heat sinks, the RAM, the VRAM was coated in dust, and it was pretty bad, so I just kind of cleaned it up to the maximum of my abilities given my effort at the time, blah blah blah. You get what I'm saying. I was too lazy to do a really good job, but I think I got pretty much everything, and it is significantly cleaner. I don't know if any of you watching have seen It's My Natural Colors cleaning my X1900 XT. I can't talk at all today, but I don't know if you've seen that video of his where he basically kind of peels like a strip of dust off the heatsink. That basically happened with this card as well, and it was coated in what looked to be what kind of felt like dry, like cut up drywall. So like the powder that would flake off, the powder that would come off of that. So I just cleaned that off, and like I said, I went over it with, or I reapplied thermal compound, and hopefully it will perform very well, considering that I am running it in Crossfire like I said previously. So of course the RAM is a single 8GB module of G.Skill Ripjaws X, I believe that is. I'm not sure if the X is incorporated in the name or if it's just like an aesthetic thing on the label there or whatnot. As you can see, they kind of went all out on the aesthetics here, but it's the G.Skill Ripjaws X DDR3. This is, like I said, an 8GB kit, or an 8GB module. I'm not sure, I think kit applies to just like more than one module, but it's a single module of 8 gigs of RAM. It is 1333 megahertz, 1.5 volts. I'm not gonna go in like really in depth on the RAM, but that's basically it. So yeah, it's DDR3 by G.Skill. It's red, has a nice heat spreader on it. It'll go well with the color scheme I'm going with. It's a blue and red because that's really all the colors I have LED fan wise. So that's pretty cool. And once again, also I got this from my friend Nick. He also gave me the graphics card. I paid 30 bucks for both of them, so 15 bucks graphics, 15 bucks for the RAM. So shout out to him. Once again, link to his gaming channel in the description. Go and subscribe to him. So that's it for the RAM. So onward to the motherboard. So the motherboard, as I said, was the ASRock FM2A85X Extreme 6 by ASRock. So I think I actually said ASRock twice there, but oh well. So this is a socket FM2 motherboard, and it uses, or it supports the my processor that my computer teacher gave to me. This also came with that kind of donation, I guess, as I scrape some thermal compound off my desk surface. But this motherboard, I'm going with it because it's the only AMD FM2 board I have, and it's the highest. I think it's probably the highest end motherboard that I own. So, of course, it supports 4 modules of DDR3. It has three 16X physical slots, a single, I don't know what that is, 1 or 4X or something, and then 2 PCI slots. So also FM2, like I said, it supports USB 3. It has 7 SATA ports. On the back, full audio, Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, and it supports integrated DVI, VGA, and also DisplayPort and the HDMI. So the same kind of outputs that my graphics card supports. So this motherboard supports APUs, which is what I'll be running in it. And what else? I guess if we turn it over, yeah, I know I shouldn't do this, I'm sure, but you can see the what are they? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. PCIe slots. So you can see these are the 2 whatever shortest ones. I actually forgot to mention that there's a top one above the 16X. So you can see there's a physical and electrical 16x, I believe that's 8x, and that's 4x, so that would be 1x as well. And has a nice beefy back plate on it, nice screws for the heat sinks and everything. And a little feature that I really like about this board, as I slice my hand on some of the solder on the back of the board, if we zoom in way down there, there's post codes and power and reset. And another thing I think is really cool is this SATA connector that sticks up like that. So I could put a SATA, I think they're like SATA SD modules or something, and I can just kind of slot it in there, because when I retire this board from my gaming system and use it, I'll probably use it as like a FreeNAS server motherboard or something when I go over to like a nice like Skylake or GTX 1080 build or whenever the hell that comes out. So that's the motherboard. Anything else about that? I don't think so. So for this build, the storage is going to be a 160, is that 160? Yeah, 160 gig Samsung SATA drive and a 500 gigabyte Hitachi DeskStar server drive. So these are both SATA drives, of course. I don't really see a reason to use IDE in this build. And another thing, the board doesn't support IDE, and why would I use IDE? Anyway, back on topic. So, of course, I don't have an SSD for this build because the only three SSDs I own are in the Mac Pro, the MacBook Pro, and the PowerBook, and I don't want to take anything or use my SSDs for a task like this. So of course I'll probably buy like a 60 gig SSD eventually and put Windows on that, and then transfer all my games over to a nice RAID array. The reason I'm not doing a dual DeskStar array with RAID 0 is because the motherboard does support it. However, I don't have the disk for the board. I just got the board itself, and it says I need to have the disk to do that. So, and it's not a driver thing. Like I physically need the disk to have a RAID array. So unfortunately, I don't have that. I do have a RAID card. It is from one of my servers, but it only has mini SAS connectors, and I don't have one of those SAS to SATA fan-out cables. If I can't speak today, like I said. It's pretty early still, but otherwise I would have some kind of array on this system. So of course I'm gonna have a 160, and that's going to hold like my downloads, my applications, and my boot, my operating system, which is going to be Windows 7. And then I'll have the 500 gig, I can't say that, jeez. Anyway, I'll have the 500 gig as my Steam library. So, also, I guess this kind of goes into the storage discussion. Let me move those aside. This is the optical drive. I honestly think optical drives look really nice in computers. I don't know why. It's one of those Atom things, but I think they just kind of look cool having them on the front panel. So this is just a, let me read what it says. It's a Toshiba Samsung CDRW DVD drive. It's the TSH493 or something, whatever that means, and it is a SATA optical drive. So, lucky me, I don't have any other black SATA cables except for the two that'll be on those drives, so I'll just use a nice out-of-place blue one. I guess my color scheme is blue and red, so that works out. But, oh well, what are you gonna do? I'll probably plug that into the upward-facing SATA connector for this one. So of course the case, I am again going back to my Deepcool Tesseract case. This case was the one I used for my 775 build, and as you can see I also have a front panel, or a front thing missing. That's where the optical drive is going to go. I kind of did lose that. That's also another reason why I'm putting an optical drive in, but it is the black and red version. of the case. Also, I have the dual blue fans up top still, and those are wired to run at 5 volts off the power supply using a modified Molex connector. And I also added in the donation video, I got a Raidmax Smile-It-On, and you can see I also added, I removed one of the fans and cable tied it to the hard drive bay. There are actually fan mounts for it, but I don't have the appropriate screws and I can't find them, so I just used cable ties. And it works fine. I'm going to be running that at 12 volts because those fans are extremely, and I mean extremely quiet at full speed, which is nice. So I'll be getting some extra cooling over the drives, and I'll probably be removing this top one and removing this one because I'll only have 2 physical drives in the system until I get an SSD. And so I don't need these extra cages, so I'll remove them to get some better airflow from the front of the case to the back. So that fan, of course, will be feeding fresh air straight to the graphics card and power supply area. So that'll be pretty nice to have that fan in there. I was hoping I could find like another red fan or a blue fan somewhere, but like I said, I don't really have any of those. So this case supports USB 3 as well, and I got it for like 30-40 bucks or something off eBay, so pretty cheap, but it's good for what it is. And this will be holding the system. And I just realized I'm like way zoomed in on that, so that's great. So last but not least is the power supply. So of course this is the Raidmax RX530SS. This is a 530 watt power supply from Raidmax, and I got this with the donation from my computer teacher. So a lot of the parts from that donation are going into this build, and this is the last one that I am going to show. So of course this is a 530 watt power supply. Hopefully I'll regain my voice, or the ability to speak normally. But of course, given that it's 530 watts, it will support my graphics card, which uses a dual 6-pin, and it has these nice sleeved cables. So it's more or less modular, you could say. On the end here it has a bunch of these little connectors, and they just plug into peripheral SATA, and the red one down there is for the PCIe dedicated graphics power. So I have all the cables for those, and this will be powering the system. So it has a blue LED fan, which will go nice with the color scheme. Eventually I will probably take this power supply apart and replace the fan with a green one to go with the new color scheme. And yes, I know I'm stupid for taking a power supply apart, but it's just kind of how I roll. I've done it many times before. Well, not many times, but a couple times before. Nothing bad's ever happened, and I honestly think I'll be fine if I'm careful, and believe me, I know how to be careful with electricity and high voltage electronics and equipment. Of course, I'll have to have it plugged into the wall to replace the fan, and I know you're supposed to ground yourself on the AC hot side or whatever it's called, as opposed to the neutral or ground. So I'll be doing that eventually, and I'm joking. I'm not stupid. Anyway, I'm joking about that. I'm not actually gonna ground myself on the hot side of a plugged-in power supply or anything like that. Because let's be honest, I like living. Anyway, I don't know, I'm feeling very sarcastic right now. Anyway, so the power supply supports SLI, apparently, as you can see by the label there, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. I won't be running SLI, I'll be running Crossfire. So, yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, I don't think there's anything else. There's a voltage selector switch. It's not auto-ranging, unfortunately, so I'll just be sure to plug it into that to 230 when I'm in my bedroom and break it. And there's also a switch. I like having these switches on the back. They're kind of cool. They're really meant to scare you, I think, because you'll leave them in the off position when you turn on the system for the first time. So anyway, I think that's gonna wrap up the parts rationale or parts listing or whatever. So what do I want to do next? I think I'm going to probably do the motherboard build and test bench setup next. So I think I will first start by installing the CPU or APU or whatever it is. So this, of course, like I said, is the AMD A10-5800k. So I'm going to lift up the retention arm and align the CPU to fit right there. So now get my microfiber cloth and my ArtiClean, you guys can't see that, but it's ArtiClean thermal surface purifier. This is what it's my natural color uses. I use this in combination with the rubbing alcohol and the thermal material remover to get a very nice clean on the CPU. So it says to wait 30 to 60 seconds or 30 to something, whatever. So I'm just gonna wait until my camera hits the 24-second mark because that'll be past 30 seconds of it being applied. So alright, so now I will just clean off the surface of it with my lint-free cloth and move it aside, and also grab my heatsink and apply it. So now I'll wait till 1 minute 20 seconds. No, 2 minutes 23, I think, if I'm doing my math correctly. So it's one thing, you do have to wait a while for this to work. So I'll just finish cleaning that off. So now let me just focus on the processor again. I will take my Arctic Silver 5 and put a large bit on there. That's probably a bit much, but it's a big heat spreader on this chip, so I'll do that. And I'm trying to think, I think the mounting hardware, let me go around the other side to properly do this, but push it down like that, just kind of lock it in place and move my, as my Mac Pro goes to sleep. So you can see CPU cooler's down, and I'll just bend over the retention arm, and there we go. So just quickly I'll install the RAM as well. Let me move the camera and grab my G.Skill RAM. So I'll go ahead and put that into the first slot next to the CPU. So of course this leaves me room to theoretically expand it to 32 gigs of RAM if I get 3 more 8 gig sticks, which probably won't happen. I don't really find the need for 32 gigs of RAM just yet. So of course I'm not going to be doing like GTA 5 at 4K or anything, so I don't really need a lot of, apparently GTA 5 at 4K is supposed to be like really intensive, so I don't know. And my allergies, because it is spring, it is early springtime, are really friggin' bad right now, and my eyes like itch like heck. So anyway, what else? I believe that's it for the motherboard setup, so it's looking pretty nice. So I actually should remove that sticker from the fan and put it on the case. I don't know why it's there, but oh well. So we have a rather messy angle going on, but this is probably the best I can get as I get a text from my mom. So I will respond to her after I finish recording this clip. So of course now is the test bench portion. So I have my power supply plugged in. It's not powered, or the switch on the back isn't turned on yet. I'll have to do that next. So please excuse me for cutting across the shot like this. Hopefully that doesn't dangle into the power supply, into the CPU fan. Let me plug in dual 4 pins and get the graphics card. Actually, I have to pull back that tab, slot the card in, and clip it back into place. And also, I have to plug it in. Actually, what I'll do is remove it and plug it in over here. So, let me just slot it back in and close down my retention thing, or the clip thing, and then plug that into the power supply. So also, of course, we need I/O. So Ethernet. I'll plug that into USB 2 because I won't have USB 3 drivers, and I'll plug that into the bottom of the graphics card. So what this is it's the I/O going to my KVM for this display here. So I'll switch it over, and my Mac Pro finds the need to start because I disconnected the I/O. I'll turn on my power supply as well and start it up. So you can see the board does indeed post. So what are we getting here? Copyright 2011, American Megatrends, BIOS date, blah blah blah. Recognizes my 8 gigs of RAM. Recognizes USB, so 3 USB hubs, 2 keyboards, and 1 mouse. I don't know why it thinks there's 2 keyboards, but oh well. Press 11 for boot menu. UEFI defaults have been loaded. Press F1 or press F2 to run, or press F2 or delete to run setup, or press F1 to continue. Let's go for F1. So you can see we're in the UEFI setup utility, which it's a pretty nice thing. I kind of like the old kind of text-based BIOS setups a lot more because I'm used to those. This is actually the only system I have that runs like this. So, of course, CPU fan is pinned at 100%, so let me and then we'll configure all those fan speeds later on. So I want to see what this CPU fan does when I restart. Actually, must just do that when it's set up like this. I don't know why it's doing that. But alright, so that is the system up and running after I went through all the parts and rationale. So that is indeed going to be it for this video. So next video will be, of course, part 2 of this build, which will be the build in the case, and then part 3 will probably be the Windows 7 installation and final thoughts. So I guess it's going to be a 3-parter, this one. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video when we actually build the system.